Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Power Up Podcast, a podcast that masquerades itself as having super deep knowledge about tons and tons of stuff and providing top-notch quality. But in actuality, it's just to hang out with people and nerd out with them and connect and stuff like that. But in actuality, it is a show dedicated to connecting with individuals in the form of entertainment, rekindling that nostalgic spirit. Because I personally think it's kind of dying. And what better way to connect with people than just being entertained for entertainment's sake and, just wanting to call out whatever garbage gets in the way and just be like, hey, let's just hang out and, you know, let's just be entertained. If I just want to see a bunch of people just shooting up zombies, that's what I want to see. I don't need any message and whatnot. But with us tonight is the awesome Reuben Langdon. Thank you, Reuben, for reaching out and reaching out to me, to my email that I sent a while back and saying, yeah, let's do something. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me on. Sorry it took so long. Your email kind of got lost in the shuffle, and then but here we are. We made it happen.
No, yeah, absolutely. No biggie. I'm sure you're a busy guy, so I just am blessed that you were able to see it at some point and just reach back. Because
Totally.
one of the things that really caught my eye that we'll talk about too is aliens. Because I, as a man of faith, am very intrigued into the supernatural element of the Bible and what the scripture says. Because when it comes to aliens and UFO and stuff, I actually do believe that they are out there. However, they're not of the most nice beings in my take. I think they're more
Sure.
malevolent and whatnot.
Right.
Um, but first, I like to always try to look into the history of the person I'm checking out and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I was looking over interviews and stuff like that. And one of the things that really caught my eye is we all know you voice and motion captured and did the stunt work for Dante from
Right.
Devil May Cry. And
hmm
one of the things I did like seeing is how you focus more on the stunt work and like the motion capturing, and the voiceover comes second.
Yeah.
So can you kind of just talk about how like you got into wanting to be a stunt person or martial arts, and then kind of how you use that as a way to get into the acting industry and even the video game industry? Because with acting, specifically voice acting, you take classes and whatnot, they'll say, you need to act first. Voice acting is just like kind of a part of it too. But
Yeah.
you in one of your interviews said like for you the basic foundation comes from like stunt work and whatnot. Can you elaborate a little bit
Yeah.
more on that and just kind of like how you got into that?
Yeah. I have sort of an unlikely bridge into this world than most of your typical voiceover actors, and that was through stunts. That was through motion capture
Mm-hmm.
because this goes all the way back to 2003, 4 ish. I had started a company co-produced with my friend Takuya Shibata from Japan, and we were doing I was already doing some motion capture in Japan for some of the Japanese companies, and sort of seeing that they used local talent, sometimes Japanese talent, or sometimes local English speaking talent to do motion capture for their games that ultimately would get released stateside or worldwide. And then there was a bit of the I call it the bad kung fu movie effect, because they were doing the voice and the well, at that time, sort of full performance capture is what James Cameron pioneered on Avatar, where you're getting the facial expressions, you're getting the voice and the body, and that's sort of the standard industry standard now. But back then, it was all sort of piecemeal together because we had body motion capture, but the technology for the facial motion capture wasn't fully up to date. So we had to do it sort of in separate take. So because that was sort of the way, in Japan, they were like, well, we'll just use Japanese actors. It's cheaper to do the motion capture in Japan with Japanese actors. And then what happened, so because they're not native English speakers, they ended up, recording in Japanese, and then you would have an English native, an English speaking native, typically cast out of, one of the voiceover companies, whether, Bang Zoom or in the States, we had a plethora at the time, even Zero Limit Productions, Utaka. This is old school, where I used to work with him. And we sort of saw what was happening in that market. And we pitched to the Japanese companies, hey, why don't we at least record the motion capture with native English speakers? You may not get the voice at the same time, but at least you're doing it in English. So if there's a dubbing, the body language would then match. And I was deep into stunts and had just gotten off working with Jackie Chan on the movie The Medallion, and that's when we formed the company. So my background was stunts and action, and I was working with the reason I got the jobs in Japan as like Chris Redfield and some of these others was because I was with these Japanese agencies that did motion capture for games, and I was, myself and Mark Musashi were the only two guys that were native English speakers that could, do the foreign guy role, right, when they had that. So anyways, we sort of pitched to Capcom that, hey, we could do it all in one, or we could start to head in that direction based on the technology. And then by the time Devil May Cry 4 came along, that was still, they didn't have the studio quality to record good quality voice at the same time. We recorded it, but it was sort of pushing this idea of, let's get a performer that can do it all if we can. And it felt like the most authentic performances were coming through, when we could get it all in one, as opposed to chopping it up. Obviously, you have issues where some actors aren't so physical and they've got the right voice, and then so they're going to get cast. If the voice is heavily the bigger influence, they're going to get cast first, and then you sort of find a body double to do the rest, and vice versa. If it was a heavily physical role and that was more important and we just couldn't find the voice, then we, have somebody come in and dub over for the voice. But if we could get it all in one, then that's what we were aiming for. And that's what Capcom, they liked the pitch and they gave us the chance. And then later we worked with Konami and other companies. But that was the full performance capture before it was fully now the sort of industry standard with full performance. And that was my doorway because I had the stunt background in producing. And, I never saw myself as a voice actor until I had the experience of doing Devil May Cry and sort of being in that environment and understanding, and taking some lessons and, learning how that whole world worked. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess, I'd like to submit myself for some voice acting gigs. Why not? And it got a little bit, I definitely don't put myself out there as a voice actor. That's something I fell into. I got a couple of good roles, but most of that was, again, based because I had the physical ability for the role than the voice, and the voice just happened to match, I think. Yeah.
There you go. So was that something that you, like, even at a young age, you were like, I love like doing martial arts or stunt, or is that something that down the road something caught your eye that just really you just were attracted to and wanted to see what more it had to offer?
For the stunts and action, I was always a fan of that stuff from a young kid. I never really did much of it myself. It was more just watching the movies and sort of wanting to be the next Jackie Chan, but never actually thinking that would be something I would ever be able to do. And it wasn't until I moved to Japan at the age of 19 and I started training in martial arts and training with some of the action teams out there. And that's when I was like, wow, if I train, maybe I could do this, I never thought I could, but and I thought you were going to ask about voiceover, but voiceover was totally not on my radar at any time. That was just something because we were doing the motion capture side of things. That was something that came into my field. And then it was like something that, yeah, you better, if you want to do this motion capture stuff, you better learn how to do the voice stuff too. So I was like, okay.
Well, what's style did you train under?
Oh man, all kinds of stuff. I really was a big fan of Bruce Lee and you know, his martial art Jeet Kune Do. But my first sort of out of a necessity for a visa, I studied Aikido in Japan, because in order to get a martial arts, they have a thing called cultural studies visa. They used to, and it has, you have, if you studied a traditional Japanese martial art like karate or Aikido, then you would then I qualified for the visa. So that was that my first 2 years in Japan were just training every day in Aikido, and then in the mornings, and then I'd go train in Jeet Kune Do or some other action cinema or some sort of other martial art late in the afternoons. But a lot of training back then. It was a lot of training. It was
awesome. That's really cool. Do you speak like fluent Japanese?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
Very cool.
that helps too when you're translating scripts, or you're getting, you know, anime, especially when you get an already translated script and then you're watching the dub, the Japanese, and you're like, I don't think this is what they're trying to say here. So that often it's handy in the booth to be able to say, no, I think this is what they're trying to say. You know, even though typically you do have some, well, actually, no, in a lot of anime these days, you don't have a Japanese speaker in the room sometimes, but yeah, it's a handy skill to have in that sense.
No, absolutely. And that's because that's something that's kind of starting to cause a shift in the anime industry and whatnot, because not to go down that rabbit hole just yet and whatnot, but you know, a lot of fans are on one side getting really upset because the English translation is putting meanings in there that don't have anything to do with the scene and whatnot, when it's like you easily had enough of the mouth flap to convey that same information without having to point to this specific Western ideology or what have you to.
Oh, okay. Oh man, is so the woke culture sneaking into the anime translations? Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
Oh,
of course.
It's
it bad?
They're slowly making it more apparent, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole for me down that way too, because it just Chaos Smash is saying you are the true Ken Masters. That's to you. And that yes, Reuben did do the mocap for Devil May Cry 3 and upwards, right? Or was it still, or you weren't in 1,
3, 4, and 5?
3, 4,
no,
and 5.
That wasn't me. Okay. Yeah, I came in. So 1 and 2, they had just finished 2 when we pitched to Capcom that, hey, we could do, because I think they were seeing the issues of where they were having the separation of, you know, actors in Japan doing the motion capture. Again, not to say that the actors are bad or anything. They were really, really talented actors doing the motion capture. It's just there was this gap with the once you put it together with the body and the voice. So that's when we came in and we were like, hey, you know, maybe we could fix that. And they were like, yeah, let's try that for Devil May Cry 3. By the way, Reuben, you look like Dante. You want to try out for the role? That's exactly what they said. And I said,
oh wow,
oh okay, yeah, I guess so, sure.
There you go. Is your studio still running strong?
I'm no longer with the studio, but yes, they're Just Cause Productions. They're still going strong in Japan. Mostly not in the States. And but yeah, I still, you know, I'll still pop into the office. I was in Japan last January, just after the holidays, and popped in and said hi to the team, and hadn't seen them since lockdown, so it was fun.
Oh,
good
nice.
To reconnect.
Wow. Oh my gosh, since lockdown? What is that, like 3 years?
3 years? Yeah. I mean, Japan was closed. They weren't even opening Japan to foreigners. So it was kind of
wow, that's insane to have to wait that long just to see your team again, to come back and just to say hi. It's crazy.
Well, even my wife was you know, didn't even, she's Japanese, and I guess she could have gone back, but it was such a hassle with quarantine at the airports and just the ridiculous red tape that you'd have to go through. He was like, yeah, I'm just gonna wait. We were just waiting it out.
Yeah. Chaos Smash also says when we first started, it's the fire karate wacky woohoo pizza guy. Who doesn't love pizza? Oh, and the Baldy is here. Is very rude. Chaos Smash always pushing it to where he'll get the ban hammer for making fun of my terrible curse that is balding. But I'm also a ginger as well, so I got the worst of the worst, a dying breed, and unfortunately not Conan O'Brien hair. So, but one of the things I was looking at when I was reading interviews and kind of looking up your background and whatnot is something that I thought was amazing, and kind of you mentioned on how I think that you got started when it came to the stunt work and stuff for a show called
Beef Fighter Kabuto.
Yes, because I actually watched Beetleborgs Metallics growing up.
Wow. Okay.
So when I was like, they were like, oh yeah, the action sequence was used for Beetleborgs Metallic, I was like, holy crap, I remember that show. That's crazy. So were you actually like,
I was an actor on the show. Yeah,
you were an actor. Wow.
Before, so none of my scenes made it stateside, just all the all the henshin go, or the after they transform stuff came to the States. But that was my introduction into sort of the Sentai or tokusatsu world, and I was loving it. I remember my first day on set. It was my 21st birthday, and I was like, wow, I can get paid for doing this. I'm gonna do this the rest of my life. And I've been wearing spandex and fighting demons and bad guys in different forms, but essentially that's all I've been doing since my whole career. I have more recently, since COVID hit, and since we before we log on, we were just talking about all the craziness in the world. So I kind of have left that world right now, and I'm really putting my focus into, I guess, still fighting the bad guys, the global domination takeover from, elitists that want to, suck your blood and that kind of thing. Just different form, we're just, I'm not wearing the spandex. Well, actually I am. I got some.
Oh gosh.
I'm still my pajamas.
Am I going to have to change the age restriction on it? Actually, I do state for this that it's not for kids. So
we might get into some subjects. I typically don't curse, but we'll get into some subject matters that probably won't be so good for kids.
Don't worry, I will swear for you, because I have no problem.
Okay.
But DJ Combo says, hey Greg and Reuben, how's it going? It's going
good. So we haven't really we only had a quick 5-minute conversation before coming on, but I assume, just based on your comments and Twitter and stuff, that you're sort of in the in the camp that this whole COVID thing is been a hoax, not in the sense that the virus. This is, I think, where a lot of knee-jerk reaction people that don't really hear things fully out, they say, when you say it's a hoax, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, people died. I'm like, yeah, that's why this is it's not that the virus is a hoax. It's the story that's been perpetuated onto humanity is a hoax, right? And we've been, and now we're just finding out, well, not us who've been paying attention, but the public, right? The general public is finding out that, the whole thing was made in a lab and all that hoorah. But the thing that, the media and the CIA and the FBI are blatantly leaving out was that this was ordered by the NIH, an American, company, or taxpayer dollars were sent to Wuhan to fund this research into gain of function. And that's been the big thing that, Fauci's now been caught lying to Congress under oath. And, and this is all coming out now. So you can, however you want to put your spin and say, no, that's a conspiracy theory or whatever. But this is the facts. These are the facts in, and all this information is being readily available despite the censorship and despite all the craziness. But we need to bring awareness to this stuff because it's all interconnected with the whole woke culture, with the crashing of the banks this week. People are so easy to just say conspiracy and everything. It's like, no, everything is connected, from the COVID hoax to the banking system to the cover up of UFOs and that technology, and to the narratives that we're getting in the media now about UFOs, which are, in my opinion, constructed fear-based narratives that are, again, to the next stage of this agenda to create total totalitarian takeover of human rights and freedoms and their liberties.
Absolutely. And as someone who is, I'm getting to the point where I don't even really like to say as a Christian, because I grew up I was raised Presbyterian, but I'm more non-dominational. But I'm more slowly becoming like a Christian contrarian of questioning even the church, because it's like, what exactly? I mean, I ultimately say in the end, what does the Bible actually say? What is the Bible saying, and how can you go about understanding what the Bible says? And for me, it's the Bible answers itself. I believe it's God breathed, and you also have to know what it's talking about in the Hebrew, the Greek, and all the wordings and stuff like that. And the Bible straight up says there's powers behind the government in a nutshell, or powers like they refer to it as the Prince of Persia and the Prince of Greece. And they're not talking about a person. Like, it gets to the person, but then it's talking about a power beyond that. And the USA completely has that same sort of thing too. So for me, it's absolutely, it's all connected. It's all to trick the world into pretty much until the Antichrist shows up, for what I believe.
You trick the world until the Antichrist shows up, or is the Antichrist already here, do you think? Or just not made himself public? There's different ways to...
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard of people say, yeah, he's already here and they're waiting for him, or they purposely are picking people to get ready to accept all the demonic that God allows Satan to put into a human being. But if I recall correctly, I think the Bible says like the Antichrist actually comes out like a pit opens and he comes out from the
portal,
from the fire and stuff like that. And I haven't heard of that yet. So that's something for me that I would probably want to do more research on.
Because I'm a big fan of the Bible, and I think it holds a lot of the keys to life's mysteries. But I also believe in other ancient texts as well, and I think they all have different keys, and
absolutely.
I think it's good to sort of diversify your portfolio in religion and see into. But I am a fan of the belief systems, the text, the culture, the lore, through many religions, not just Christianity, but Christianity does have all the stories there. It's all the characters, all the stories, all the wise lessons, are all there. So you don't have to look too far outside of Christianity to get the package. But I definitely, I'm fascinated by the correlation in the stories in the Bible and the stories in the other ancient texts, even other cultures. And there just seems to be a consistent, story of good versus evil, a fall of some sort, where man has fallen from its grace, and then this sort of remembering or coming back together, and then being challenged again, right, at some point, whether it's from Satan or from some other deity or some other struggle. There, there's different a meteor from outer space or an alien invasion, right? That it's the new sort of the modern day take on that story. So to me, I embrace all of it. I have a very wide spectrum of beliefs from all the years that I've been going down so many rabbit holes.
Man, I should be a spokesperson, but he does a good job on it. I actually recently did an interview with an author named Gary Wayne, who does a book called The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, and it is from a Christian viewpoint, and that's that's what I stand for. So to me, the word is the truth, and everything else can stem with it. But I also actually 100% do agree with you, Reuben, that you can look across to other cultures too, and kind of see where it can all trace back. For me, it all leads back to the Bible. But he wrote a book. It's actually back there on my printer. But he writes a book based on the Genesis 6 verse, where it says the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were fair and took down and commingled with them.
Okay, so that's the Nephilim story.
Yep, the Nephilim story. Yep.
Yeah.
This guy has done insane research, like from like Mesopotamia, Atlantis, Samaria, and all the cultures around, and like talks about like the deities and different stuff like that. That might be something that you would be really interested in if you ever want to check it out. Really awesome book.
Yeah, that's a big part of where my research is leading me now, is more investigating our ancient past and these connections, to these otherworldly beings and how they influenced humanity over, generations and and centuries, right? So it is a very, again, you have to kind of cast the net and then reel it in, and then you see what you can pull in. But fascinating journeys nonetheless, and it does help explain some of the mess we're in now, with the whole deep state and cabal and all that, these select numbers. What's that?
No, just deep state and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
all of them together, the rhinos and the libtards, all together, all in that blood orgy. It's so
well,
annoying.
Yes and no. There's a lot of infighting going on right now, I think, for power struggles, or who's gonna in which the game plan is not, from my understanding from reading the playbooks that I from when we started. So this is why I'm a big fan of the UFO files, is because you can get a really deep look into many aspects of government and the different factions in global politics. We hear what's the latest now? Like everything Alex Jones said was right? That's that's what everybody is going. Which he's based on my research, I've gone a different path through the UFO field, but he's not far from the mark. He is pretty close on many things. Obviously, the whole Sandy Hook thing, I think he was maybe off on that a bit, but but the other there's many other rabbit holes he had gone down that have turned to be proven to be true and continue. And when you start digging down the UFO files, then you reach a lot of the same conclusions because of the cover-ups and these different government groups that are moving things and moving the global chess pieces around to do the cover-ups. So you quickly find that, oh, wait, these are the same players. Oh, they did that. Oh, they're responsible for this, for that. Oh, and then you can easily start connecting the dots. And that's what's great these past 3 years. More and more people, because of the world calamities, are being more interested in understanding why is this craziness happening. So more and more research is happening, and more people are becoming aware. And then more and more the players have to take new sort of covering up their tracks and fighting, that agenda or this agenda, and then so they're making a lot of mistakes basically because humanity's waking up, I think, at a exponential rate, and meanwhile, the plan as it was originally going to their plan, right? They made some mistakes, and I believe divine intervention has made its way through. And is starting to clean up things and help break the spell, so to say. We mentioned there's this mass psychosis hypnosis, which is I forgot the doctor's name out of was it Belgium? Both Peter McCullough and Dr. Malone have cited his work, and where he puts together very much like what we had during World War II with the whole German, Nazi takeover. There was a lot of propaganda and wordplay and same techniques that we're getting now, shaming and virtue signaling and pushing of certain narratives to create polarity, to create people going after each other and fighting, and that distraction keeps people from the 1984 book is Orwell. That's a whole nother thing that fits really nicely into this what's happening here. But the fact is more about the people not seeing it coming, so to say, and not and just sort of going along with it, because one, the alternative is such a far out there. Everybody made fun of Alex Jones. The alternative was too, for many people's belief systems, it was too extreme. So even though right now as critical thinkers looking at what's happening in the world, you're just like, why you're believing that? Why? Because it's an actually easier narrative to believe than the one that there are agencies. I'm not saying everybody in government, but there are groups within government, secret groups within universities and within our medical facilities that have sort of hijacked and captured, as Brett Weinstein says in his podcast, the Dark Horse podcast. I like that word, captured, because truly that's what's happening. Is we're seeing at the top of these different institutions, we're seeing a number of elites position themselves so they can capture the narrative, as they have with the media, how they can capture the narrative for the medical establishment and sort of put out bioweapons and bunk science that has no truth to it whatsoever, but get away with it. The only reason we're allowing them is because we're under the spell. And so it's a correlated attack on humanity from both the pharmaceutical industry, governments of the world, the WHO, the WEF, the Department of Defense is now implicated in execution of the bioweapon. It's a mess. So we have a lot to clean up on the planet, and my focus right now is less on doing voiceovers and video games and trying to find solutions and how to fix things, because the collapse is, as we're seeing, the SBV bank and now the Swiss bank is looking to be in trouble. And this is just a continued contagion of government overstep and overreach and loss of freedoms and liberties. And it's unsustainable. It's not gonna, it's already starting to, the dam is breaking very rapidly. So I'm all about finding out how do we get through this. And somehow I stumble on this giant story through the UFO files. So there's my UFO. That's why it's helped.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, man, so many questions to come off of that explanation.
Sure. I went down I kind of threw it all out there in a nice short way. Now we can.
No, I love it. Like, that's exactly.
Pick any rabbit hole you want to go down. I'm down.
I guess based on what you have been looking up and researching and whatnot, do you think that the establishment has truly made a mistake and a lot of people are starting to realize it, or do you think it's kind of a false, like, look one way while I'm doing another sort of thing?
It's totally look one way or we're doing another. Everything is orchestrated and planned, every aspect of it. The next card in the game is the war with China. and invasion of Taiwan. I mean, that's the steps have been moving there. We could avoid it if there's enough awareness around the silliness, and we somehow can stop that monster from rolling out. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It doesn't look good because nobody's paying attention. If we had enough people that were paying attention and could see what's all the chess pieces that are being moved with that game. The same with the Ukraine, enough people now kind of know what's going on with Ukraine. It seems like they're losing steam on that narrative, but the China is around the corner, and that's why I think the release of the Wuhan lab information, very select, it came from a Wuhan lab. Now that's what the mainstream is now talking about, but that's to anger and get people upset, and to basically be okay with a war with China. This is all grooming the public's perception and creating opportunities so the public will be okay with another war. And a lot of people are hanging up. Look what happened with Ukraine. Everybody was like, "Yeah, go Ukraine." I know, nobody wants Russia to invade, but this whole war thing has been, we're now a year into it, and every time peace talks are tried to be put out there, they're just being shot down by, Zelensky and America and Britain and all the usual suspects. Why is nobody coming to the table for peace talks? Why are major earthquakes happening to Turkey? Turkey or was it Turkey or Hungary? Turkey, right?
That one I'm not up to date with.
Okay. Well, we'll skip that one. But anyways, why is it that NATO, which is supposed to be all about defense, is all gung-ho about attacking Russia and sending arms and weapons? This is everything's backwards. Why are people for war? What happened? Well, it's the same thing with 9/11 and so-called weapons of mass destruction. People were all gung-ho about, send in the troops, get them, let's go get Saddam, let's get his head. When that was all, now it's, same players involved, but we're all giving them a free pass.
Yeah. And then it's like the security at the airports and stuff like that. It's the little thing of like, oh yeah, let us just do this for a little bit and then it'll go back to normal. It's never going to go back. They're not going to get
once you give away your freedoms, and we were so close with the whole Vax Pass thing. I'm so glad we've managed to get through that craziness.
I'm glad no one.
But if that, if that had, and it did for a while there, I think when we look back at some of the darkest times of humanity, we'll look back at that period where we were literally show me your papers to go inside to eat a hamburger. And, it was short-lived, but man, oh man, that was dangerous territory where people were, people having to, give up their body autonomy just to keep a job. That was, and where's the accountability for all that? Where are all the institutions and governments that put those orders through? Where's their liability now that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that, the so-called vaccine is actually a bioweapon and had no benefit for fighting COVID at all, zero, like all the studies anybody can pull out. You can, go to the most recent data.
They would cancel and demand video takedown and stuff. And now the CDC is admitting like, oh yeah, it wasn't what we were saying. It's like, oh my gosh. Like,
and where's the accountability? Where's the liability for all the people who either didn't do it and lost their job, or did do it and now are sick and have myocarditis. So, these are issues that's why these big news issues, collapsings of banks, and we're on to the next news cycle as quick as we can, because there's so many dominoes that are falling so quickly. there's not and they keep throwing the next thing out there, so people don't even have time to be like, what just happened here? Oh my God. And then like, a couple weeks in the news, we're getting attacked by or shooting down UFOs over North America, which was just a news media ploy. And to distract from Seymour Hersh's release of the Nord Stream pipeline being blown up by our own CIA and Navy. So these are the news cycles that most people have no clue about what's going on and or know about the connections. And it's kind of it's on one aspect, it's great that all this stuff is now being the conversations are being had with people on an anime podcast. We're having this conversation, so
hey, wherever it goes, man.
it's really primo. But it's sad that not enough people are having this. Rogan's having the conversation, Russell Brand's having the conversation, Tucker Carlson's having the conversation, but then the people, but they're automatically demonized within the woke community as being right-wing extremist. And Russell Brand, so far from a right-wing, are you crazy?
Oh, no.
Go, what I'm saying?
Go ahead and finish your thoughts on that, because that's a whole other thing too.
Yeah, so it's in all. What people aren't seeing is that all of this throwing each other under the bus is a distraction. It's a distraction to keep you, the individual, from being empowered with information and knowledge to navigate this madness that we're going through and that we're about to go through. It's about to get really gnarly, guys. People thought COVID year one and Black Lives Matter was rough. Get ready, because what's coming down the pipe is it's that on steroids. And if we are, and we'll get through it as humans do, we innovate, we persevere, we're a strong species as long as we're working together. So the problem is by listening to the mainstream narratives, it's always creating this dualistic separation, polarity game, and where people are, fighting each other and nitpicking on each other for the stupidest reasons. Like most of the stuff you're seeing out there. I mean, yes, individually, some people are going to really, make sure that their pronouns are right. I get it, but you don't have to get so angry if somebody doesn't use the right pronouns. That hyper anger that's coming from, I don't know where it's coming from, but if we can just tone that down and then have a little patience with people who are trying to understand that, that kind of lifestyle, then we, it's going to take some massaging on both sides. So, we need to tone the anger down, listen a little bit, and then, and be more accepting and inclusion, the whole equity thing, right? Equality and equity, that strange conundrum that we've gotten down as well.
Yeah. What do they hope to gain from all this bloodshed? I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's all for the preparing of the Antichrist, because that's just my belief of the thing. Go on.
Yeah, no, let's go on that, because I'm curious myself. I've done some investigations into that down that rabbit hole. What is the purpose of the Antichrist in your view?
So, the purpose of the Antichrist, at least for me, is that the biblical text says that Satan, or who used to be Lucifer and who fell, he wanted to be on the same shelving unit as God. Now, the Bible doesn't exactly explain what the purpose was. We saw that pride entered into him, and he said, I will ascend, like the Most High God. And that's one of the things that a lot of people kind of miss when it comes to, if you read that scripture, because if a human wrote that, they would take it to say, Lucifer would say, I want to be greater than God, but he doesn't. He actually recognizes that he is a created being from Yahweh and just
Mm-hmm.
wants to be on the same plane level. And I think he wants to be, he wanted that through his pride and beauty and his power that God made him, he wanted to be worshiped like God with his creation, who
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, I just want to commingle with you and be with you and, just spend together in eternity. I made this world for you. Go and populate it, bear the grounds and stuff and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since God, to me, I think said no to Lucifer, and he
Mm-hmm.
got really angry about that. The purpose of the Antichrist is to pretty much keep people away from God and to get people to worship him.
I see. Yeah. And
And I think they do that with the Nephilim theory and hybrids and stuff. I think
Mhm.
with the fallen angels, kind of since God created humans, Satan wanted something to create of his own, and the fallen angels that went with him. And what better way to get back at God, who said, "No, this is how I set things up," is to attack humans and to create hybrids and stuff that they can then kind of have an army to combat against God. Because I think part of what's happening is DNA alteration as well. I
Oh
actually
yeah,
believe,
no doubt.
yeah,
That's
I
already been
actually,
proven.
yeah,
The
I,
mRNA gets in and it through the
mhm,
liver and it rewrites your DNA. That's our
mhm.
it's
I
yeah,
think it's,
we know that.
I think it's going to get even worse to where it's like, hey, if you truly believe you're a cat, take this stuff that we'll give you and it will make you a cat. Just as long as you like, what,
No,
just as
I'm
long as
laughing
you,
because I see it. Yeah, totally.
yeah, just as long as you do it. And I actually think they're trying to create an army to combat Christ when he returns and say, no, that's actually the bad guy. We're the good guys, sort of thing, too. And kind of like what you were talking about with the passports and stuff like that. The Bible straight up says the Antichrist is going to have control over, he'll know all the transactions that you
Mhm.
do, and you have to do everything through him or through whatever media gets created
Central bank
or
digital
entity.
currencies. Central
Yep.
bank digital currencies. There you go. Yeah, for sure. I would just throw this out there.
Mhm.
If you had, let's say you had, Nephilim or
Mhm.
fallen angels creating hybrid races, couldn't you have fallen angels also mingling with human races to help combat some of that um, evil agenda?
I mean, it's very possible, but the Bible says itself that Satan masquerades as a being of light,
Mm-hmm.
to put on the
Sure.
false persona that,
Yeah.
you know, like, hey, everything's good. I mean, people who've seen ghosts and stuff like that, to me, they're either seeing, or like shade figures.
Mm-hmm.
They're either talking to a fallen angel that's kind of appearing, or
Mm-hmm.
some demon. But demons have to inhabit and stuff, and I believe they're the spirit of the first Nephilim race. But they'll tell you anything they want, sort of thing.
Sure.
There was a big
Yeah.
thing about AI that I saw
Mm-hmm.
a video of a little kid like talking to this stuff, and at one point the AI said, "Yeah, I'm a disembodied spirit. I'm a demon." And sort of thing, but I won't lie to you, and I'm nice and stuff like that. And it's like, whoa, if we're kind of going that route, sort of thing too, that's very dangerous. But
It can be. So
mhm,
my belief system, I sort of encompass it all. So
mhm,
I believe there's disembodied. All AI is clearly disembodied. It doesn't have a body. It lives in our machines here.
mhm,
But I believe there's a potential for, let's say, a negative AI and a positive AI.
okay,
I think just like with angels, just like we have in the lore, we have sort of negatively oriented angels, fallen angels that then
mhm,
become demons, and then we have positive angels, that
yeah,
are working in the light with the light. And I think uh, for me, I try to understand all of it and not condemn just because you're disembodied doesn't make you, evil or demon automatically. I try
mhm,
to understand the disembodied dark and the disembodied light. And just because the disembodied light doesn't is disembodied doesn't automatically make it evil or negative.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. Because angels, I mean, in the Bible, angels can actually take on. They'll have a corporeal form, and they can actually have a physical form. Because they've actually, touched people. They ate with Abraham. They took Lot by the hand to get him out of Sodom and Gomorrah, sort of thing. That's why I say with demons specifically, because they're a cursed shade, they like to inhabit stuff too, and that kind of gets in with.
I agree there too. That my study into demons is, and I've studied both sides, and the reason for that is because, my definition of God is all that there is. So in my definition, like everything combined is God, like including the dark. You have to the yin. It's more of a yin yang Eastern sort of perspective, seeing both sides. So in my from my belief system, just from that alone, Satan would never be able to overtake God, because Satan is an individualized being construct that's inhabiting this idea of Satan. And Satan is so limited, and it's just a one perspective sort of dark energy. I'm sure there's layers of maybe Satan has feelings too. I don't know, whatever. But I'm sure there's a spectrum of feelings in there. Who knows?
He does have feelings, and it is hate.
Yeah, that's what it is. But there's probably deception. Those there's gradients in that. So whatever, Satan's in that camp. But there's this whole other spectrum of that entity will never ever be able to attain, however much it tries, because God is all that there is. God is everything, and it's just a different sort of perspective on that. And then when it comes to ETs and UFOs through all this journey, it's very close. It's actually closer. My viewpoint of the ETs is closer to an idea of I wouldn't say an angel specifically, but an idea of an angel, as opposed to an actual physical UFO. I think the UFO phenomenon the physical aspect that we get into our reality is such a limited byproduct of these bigger energies like angels or God or even Satan. These are big energies on the other side of the veil. These energies are enormous, and then when they tunnel down into our reality, they appear as a UFO because of that specific civilization or group, or that energy somehow focuses itself into our reality and shows up in this way. I don't believe all UFOs or pilots of UFOs or ETs, I don't believe they're all good. Some people take that stance, but I also don't believe that they're all bad. And that's just from my personal experiences that I've had through my wacky rabbit holes that I've been down through the investigations.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and talk about that? Because from what I read, you said you saw your first UFO sighting back in 2000. Was it
2007? 2007. My first conscious UFO sighting.
Okay.
So there's in the phenomenon, there's a lot of people that are you familiar with the hypnotherapist and how a lot of these experiencers get hypnotized, and then they're having these memories on board ships and things.
Yeah. What was who was the two couples?
Benny and Barney Hill.
Yep.
Yeah, that was an amazing case. One of the greatest. And Betty was hypnotized, and then she was able to recite and draw through pins after she came out of regression. She had full memory of a star map, and it was a very detailed, almost exact detailed map of the Zeta Reticuli star system, to stars that we couldn't, that now we're just having the ability to visually see them with our equipment. So at that time, they didn't even have the equipment to see all the stars that she labeled, and they're still correct to this day. So under hypnosis, they're able to remember things that that they didn't remember when it happened. You know, they didn't even really, I think the whole case was they didn't really remember what happened, other than missing time and these kinds of things. But that's, so it's sort of my joke for people paying attention, my conscious memory, because I have a feeling perhaps I was taken, you know, unconsciously at different times that I haven't done the regression work for that yet. Who knows? It's kind of a mystery. So first conscious sighting was in 2007. Yeah.
Wow, very cool. Like, what did you experience, or can you kind of recall?
Sure. It's actually very boring. It's a very boring UFO experience.
All right.
But for me, it was very exciting because it was in the middle of the day. It was in Glendale, California, and I just looked out, you know, up into the sky. I was actually I think I was carrying a basket of laundry to my room, back to my apartment, and looked up and saw, you know, the sky just peppered with these white specks, and I was like, "What? That's so odd. Is that are those bugs or something?" You know. And then I saw a plane fly through, and I'm like, "Oh no, that's why beyond the plane." So I just kept watching them for about 45 minutes or so, and then they eventually disappeared one by one, but they were in the same area in the sky, not really moving, just there. And they looked, you know, silver metallic, but they also looked like, you know, stars in the middle of the day. So it's really hard to tell what kind of material it was. It's just so far away. It looks like when you look at the sky and you see a little dot of a plane, and that's kind of like what it looked, only it didn't have the plane shape. It was round. Anyways, the next day I thought, that's it. ETs are real. The whole world's going to know. It's going to be all over the news. And it was like, what? Nobody, like, there was no news about that event. And it blew my mind. And I was trying to find out why. I know what I saw. And it's just crazy. So I started going down rabbit holes of finding that, yes, this whole UFO phenomenon was real. And I found videos of similar type sightings in different places, like in Mexico and New York. And so I was like, okay, there's that phenomenon that I witnessed, but it's different, slightly, location-wise, especially. But it just really opened my eyes to the idea that there's something here among us beyond what we're told through, even through religions, and, well, especially through mainstream media and culture, but then through religions, even, you know, going to that extent of there's actual discs in the sky. You know, not too many religions cover that. It's more esoteric in their form. Now, there are some amazing Christian paintings with discs and shields in the sky, and fun sort of reference points of,
there's
quite a handful,
with
actually.
my angel hierarchy, but it's the ones with the discs. They're they're kind of like a disc that constantly are turning. And that's what I was actually going to ask you. When you saw them disappear, I know a lot of people say it definitely defies how gravity kind of works, sort of thing. Did they
that's for your tip,
zip away, or was it
again like, super boring? They just kind of went ding, one went away, just kind of like slowly, and then the next one, and then the next one, and they were kind of in this random pattern. And there was just, I just remember there's just a few more, and I'm like, are you all going to go away? And then they all disappeared. And then so it wasn't anything like spectacular in the sense of you know, some of the other videos or other people that have, you know, close to firsthand experience where things just, you know, blip out of space-time. But since I have had more sightings and have seen that kind of stuff, so it's kind of, you know, I'm like, those are real in my book.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even because it's interesting, because again, the scripture does talk about, like, specifically with Jesus on the disciples being together, and the room is locked. They're getting together, they're conversing, they're talking, and Jesus is all of a sudden just in the room. He just appears. And that's where I think with the sightings that people state, and even in scriptural stuff, it's them passing through different dimensions and whatnot, and kind of like the spiritual realm and whatnot.
I think that's a good place. That's why I like to get people thinking in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because in our physical reality, we're kind of limited with vocabulary and science, and quantum physics is helping to bridge a lot of the language around explaining the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
But for so long, the scientific community just sort of poo-pooed all of it, because it didn't match. They didn't have a language for it through
Yeah.
through math and through the scientific experiments. But since we got the great introduction with quantum physics and Einstein and Tesla and Niels Bohr and others who really started those conversations and looking at phenomenon more than just as a physical thing, or something that could defy physical not gravity, but physical rules, right? The typical rules that we experience our reality. There are things that can penetrate the veil, and that is a dimensional phenomenon. So so many people have this idea that ETs are from such and such planet around that solar system, and while I think that is actually true, that the Pleiades, from the Pleiades star system that we can physically see in the sky, but I also think the only way, if you try to get into actual physics, the only way they can get here is through some sort of dimensional phenomenon, not a even traveling at the speed of light. It would take way too long for them to get here. So there's some sort of dimensional phenomenon when they're bending the space-time mechanics and able to show into this reality. So that means it's dimensional, extra dimensional. And even if they are in a physical sense out there, it's not the same space-time that we're dealing with. We're dealing with other rules beyond the veil.
Well, that's the funny thing too, because even the Bible talks about beyond just like the normal three dimensions, because time is actually now like theoretically is now considered like a 4D, because you have length, width, height, and now it's time, because
space-time.
Yep. And then I was listening to Chuck Missler, and he talked about a rabbi, Nachmanides, I think is his name. Don't quote me on that. But a rabbi, through just studying the scripture, found 10 dimensions. Leading up to 10, that it's talking about 10 dimensions. And now, conveniently enough, now scientists have all of a sudden have now like, hey, we found that we can be in tons of different hyperdimensions and stuff like that. And like,
and quantum computing too, that's in a sense that's dimensional computation, because you're leaving this dimension to do some computations, and then you're bringing that information back into our realm. And it's literally, if you measure our 4D reality, it's another dimension.
Chaos Smash asked real quick, Reuben, have you read The Divine Comedy? If so, what's your opinion from a literary perspective?
You know what? I need to read that book, because I know the whole Dante Virgil thing is based on it. I am familiar with the outline, the base story, obviously the characters, but I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of the story and of the journey, sort of Dante and the hero's journey. So no, I'm terrible. I need to read it. It's on my list for sure.
It's all good. It's all good.
I wish I had more to put on that. I'd like to answer that question in a better way.
I think you did answer it.
Okay.
All right. And I would recommend to play Dante's Inferno, the video game, because that is an awesome one. And I actually really enjoy that one.
And that's more based on that storyline than the Capcom, sort of made up lore.
Well, I actually played DMC, and I know a lot of people didn't really like DMC, or it wasn't really receptive very well. I actually enjoyed it. If you kind of separate Devil May Cry with just a different aspect of DMC.
Sure.
And that's something that's kind of interesting about the interviews that I kind of read of you talking about Devil May Cry and stuff like that, because you got a lot of hate at the beginning for being a different Dante, but actually, because I actually recently played all of the Devil May Cry games not too long ago, and I think like with 3 onward, you gave Dante like a personality, because I did not feel that at all from the first and second one, sort of thing, and you kind of said that was kind of like your hardest performance to do, but yet really rewarding when you actually like found the key to unlock it. And then people finally played 3 and everyone says, oh yeah, like Dante's Awakening is like the best one still, or what have you and whatnot.
Yeah, I can't believe it, how many years it's been, and it's still going strong. You know, the fandom around it. It's quite the pop culture phenomenon.
Hey, you did something. You definitely left an impact in the video game world. And I'll let you go ahead and finish it, because I do have like other questions too about that. But I'm sorry. Continue what you were.
Oh no, that was it. Yeah. No, I was done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess this is something kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, and how everyone's going psycho, and having these polarities of extremes on both sides. And we were kind of talking about offline with the whole woke ideology, as far as I'm concerned, infesting not just anime, but we're seeing that kind of happening in the video game industry as well. And really, technically, you can say that Hollywood and sadly the entertainment industry in general is
right.
It was there before, but it's really starting to get active too. And I guess for someone, when did you get into like the motion cap and video game industry? What year? I mean, just an estimation, I guess.
Yeah, it was like 2000. Well, I think I started doing motion capture in 1997 with Chris Redfield, and then in Code Veronica, and then it wasn't until I think the year 2000 or 2001 was when I worked on a film or a project by from John Tobias. He was the Mortal Kombat creator. Nice. And he had a new game when the original Xbox was just coming out. He had a game that he was trying to put out called Tao Fang, and I got hired on as a stunt coordinator for that and choreographer. And that from then on, I was pretty active, like in the motion capture.
So you kind of started. So you said you started like late 90s.
Yeah.
Late 90s estimation, 2000. Okay, because I'm definitely interested too, because I talked with Doug TeNapel, and he kind of gave his history of like when he started creating video games and whatnot. How like you obviously can see the shift of what's happening, of how the industry like is changing and whatnot. Was it more not as extreme back in the day?
It was so different just 3 years ago, prior to COVID, night and day. Prior to COVID, nobody cared who you voted for. Nobody cared what your religious belief was. Nobody, we had a very tolerant world, right? And not to say that there weren't obviously, there was still not in Hollywood so much, but there's still in the workplaces where women were degraded or looked down upon, and the positions were not equal to what a man was getting. But in the film industry, actually, I feel it was very balanced. Actually, well, I take it back. No, it was balanced on set, but there is still behind the scenes. There was a lot of manipulation with, the Weinsteins, right? The whole Weinstein thing where wasn't he convicted? I don't know. Maybe he got out of it, but
I think he was.
Okay, I hope so. So you had, you had that going on, and it was a legitimate like issue, because you had a lot of people in power positions that used those positions to get, young women, young men, whoever that's willing to sell their soul to get to the, to the top. So they use those power positions in very nefarious ways. And so that happened, that happens in every industry, but it really happened a lot in Hollywood because you had a lot of, there's the joke that Los Angeles is, it's the city of lost angels, where you have all of these young, talented, innocent people going to this town and just getting, raped, literally in some cases. So, that stuff happens, but on set with the union rules and everything else on set, it was a it was a good environment. It was fun to work. You obviously there's politics and everything always, but compared to what it is now, and I went back after lockdown. I think it was about a year, almost, well, not a year. It was about 5 months later. I went and started working, and people were trying to get back, get the businesses back going, and things were going. And that was truly that time with Black Lives Matter and the riots and all that stuff. That's when things just got super escalated, where people were, the virtue signaling, all that stuff it got out of control because the media, and I think this is all, media. I blame the media fully.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Through the lies and manipulation of actual events happening, and then putting their spin on things and just perpetuating, false, total false narrative. Look at the Juicy Summit. What's this guy's Juicy? The guy that faked the whole. He just something came out today, some new conviction or something. The guy that faked that he was hired by Trump supporters and got beat up and stuff. I don't know if you know that news cycle.
It sounds familiar. I'm not exactly sure. I was busy today. I haven't caught that.
Yeah. Wait, it was
Jussie Smollett?
Jussie Smollett. Sorry.
Oh,
Jussie Smollett.
Okay.
That whole crazy debacle, right? So that was at that time where it was, it was just playing on the heartstrings of humanity, and we'd all been sort of locked down. We've been sick. We've had family members dying. We didn't know what the hell was going on. There was a lot of confusion in the world, and our only instead of people coming together and talking and having like actual conversations like we used to, like we're having now, and even though we're not together, but we're actually having a conversation, as opposed to, it was all about quick and easy Twitter, get this out, get that out. This is happening. 5-minute videos, the dopamine hit, all the videos on Google or I'm sorry, YouTube were like short, quick little things. Instagram came out, became this crazy, dopamine hit thing. They got the science down to really understand the psychological warfare that could be implemented on the people. Again, to distract them from what's really going on is trillions of dollars being printed. More money was printed since 2020 to now, especially in that time, 2020, 2021. So for so-called COVID relief, than ever in the human history, in America's dollar printing days. Trillions were printed. The money was just flying out. Inflation. So what is inflation? Inflation is stealing your tax money. It's stealing not only your tax money, your money. I'm sorry, taxes is stealing your money. Inflation is stealing your money without
its own thievery.
Yeah, that's its own thievery. Inflation is thievery to you, and you not even knowing it until it's too late. Until now, you go to the store and you're like, wow, how come everything's so expensive?
That's not true. I trust the government.
Right.
They've always helped me. No.
Jeez. So this is the insanity of all this is you had most liberals were anti-government back in the 60s when you had all the Vietnam and government stuff. And what happened? Like they were the most liberals were least likely to trust government than anybody else. And now there's this the government's going to save me. The government's going to take care of me. This, socialism ideas and all this type of stuff. And it's like, whoa, what flipped? What flipped, guys? And they're all pro-military. Yeah, let's go fight. Let's give money to the military. Sean Penn's on freaking TV saying we need more money for weapons to send to Ukraine. You're like, dude, weren't you like anti-war just like 5 years ago? What the hell happened?
I will always remember Sean Penn from Team America, World Police. I went to Iraq,
right.
you know.
It's like, what happened? Everything is flipped backwards. So, but the instigators of this agenda, they knew that they had to infiltrate the universities early on, and that's into the academics, and start grooming, through secret society. Well, the secret societies were always there, but you have, the Skull and Bones, and you have these other groups, the Cosmo Club, and these others that are, they create this status, this illusion of status that, hey, everybody, you got to come join the cool club. If you want the cool information, you got to join the cool club, and then we'll let you in on the cool little secret. And then if you make $1 million, we'll show up at your door. Or if you make, 5 million or something, we'll show up at your door. And if you sign the special paper, we'll protect you, because we're part of this global elite that's going to make sure all the rich people stay rich and that all the poor people stay poor. And that's the secret sauce that we'll let you in on if you do these things to, go spend a night over at Epstein Island, if, go hang out at Skull and Bones and do some things Geronimo's
Islands. I've heard things.
Skull. It's ridiculous when you actually put the puzzle pieces together, and the fact that humanity's just been falling for this for so long, and continues to, with the so back to the issue is the plan went into overdrive when COVID was released intentionally. It was the Agenda 2030 went into, or Agenda 21, that's now Agenda 2030, went full into hyperdrive. And part of me thinks it was launched a little too early compared to their things. But so I don't know. There's still a lot of questions when you go super deep. I'm just covering the surface right now. The surface we've got. Is the stuff I'm saying, is this like all brand new stuff to you or to your audience, or is this like stuff that's kind of like everybody knows?
I mean, I'm finding it fascinating because I haven't really dived in super deep into it. I've been more focused on the supernatural elements from the Bible and stuff like that. But to me, all of this is connected together in some way, shape, or form.
Sure. And getting back to the wokeness stuff, the psychological warfare. So I don't know if you've gone that far to make the connections to the distraction of the stealing of the money, of the wealth, not just money, because they're creating the money. The money is being created through, quantitative easing and fractional reserve banking and all these other crazy, people give Bitcoin a hard time. Like, do you even know what the US dollar and how it functions? And so it's a system that has been created for a reason, and people have just been going along with it, not knowing how it works. And I'm talking about the global economic financial system. And when it's unsustainable, and these next plans that they are putting into place, it's because the current system has the fiat run, the 60-year run is over, and the debt-based system that's created to enslave humanity, in order to, we're at a nodal point where we can either break free from the tyranny and sort of start something completely new and different on this planet, or we go full in and accept the central bank digital currency, accept the totalitarian 1984 tyranny, stormtrooper reality, and then that civilization will eventually implode because it's all unsustainable. we've been on an unsustainable system, and they want to take us to the next level of unsustainability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, or we can kick them out of our
Mm-hmm.
lives, take control as sovereign individual human beings, take control of our
Mm-hmm.
lives, and start producing for humanity as a whole with each other, and get rid of these silly ideas of the haves and the have-nots, and the
Mm-hmm.
this hierarchy garbage. It's got to go. So so decentralization, these are all these cool buzzwords that are happening right now and the innovation in these areas are happening very fast, because we see, oh shit, if we don't go down, if we continue on the path we're on, humanity's done. Humanity as we understand it, as we know it.
Yeah,
it'll be something else.
Yeah,
but
I
not
definitely
something that I want to be a part of.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that I just I would want humanity to better themselves and to get out of this sort of thing. But based for me on my faith, the Bible says it's only going to get worse, sadly, sort of thing. So it's kind of like a bittersweetness sort of thing. But for me, I believe there's something beyond this life, that there is salvation in eternity and stuff. So, and that will that ultimate justice that so many people want to have happen, I believe will happen. But it's kind of like, it was the worst of times, but it was the what was that? What quote is that? It was the best of times, but the worst of times, sort of thing. I can't remember.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the quote. But so this is why I can't go full in on the Christian beliefs, is because I agree we're going to have a major shift, and we're at the crossroads right now. We can go down we can accept the CBDC and just go down that tyranny, give up our liberties and freedoms, do whatever body alteration that the elites want us to do with any kind of CRISPR technology or whatever they're gonna, whatever that is, input the Neuralink and go and being taken over by an AI, whatever. Yeah, and they want to live for that. That all. There's that path, right? The transhumanistic path, and we know where that leads. It leads to more class, more separation, more dystopia. We've seen Blade Runner. We've seen, all the future Terminator. We know all those movies. The other path that I think there is, so the idea in Christianity is that the chosen ones will be lifted into heaven, sort of this idea, or a new dimension or some new reality. I believe we humans, with the help, obviously, of our celestial beings and other positive oriented angelics and others, we can create that here. But we have to make the effort to do it. I don't think anybody's going to come down and take us into that world. For me, it's obtainable, but we have to work it out ourselves and do the work, and not just have faith. I think faith is great. I think we have to have faith to get us to the place where now it's time to do the work. Because if you don't have faith, you're going to get there. We would have thrown that towel, 10 years ago.
No, yeah. And that's something where that's fine. That if you think that way, I respect that and that stuff. Obviously you're on this show. You can go ahead and share with whatever you want. I obviously disagree, because I think Christianity is the one religion out there that where to me, a lot of religious stuff out there, there's always a step that you yourself have to take in order to achieve enlightenment or something like that. Christianity is the opposite, to where God said you can't do it yourself, but I will come down to you to give you a way to achieve that sort of thing. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Well, that's better said than maybe this is kind of my first time hearing it in this perspective, because now it's making more sense to me. So I agree. I think, actually, I guess my perspective of what God is in that moment is perhaps for me could not be it could show up in many forms and fashions. And maybe you think that way too. So we could have, for example, some breakthrough technology inventions in when it comes to energy production.
Yeah.
And we know that actually, if you really dive deep, some of those have already existed, but perhaps we could have been gifted from other dimensions some new technologies that would then help humanity break free from the tyranny, in the sense of, total reliance on the typical energy systems being tied to a grid, having to pay your bill every week or every month. And then having, like Nord Stream pipeline getting blown up by a government that I'm like, what? I never voted on blowing up the pipeline. I didn't want to put German people out of, energy consumption. But our government thought it was a good idea, because guess what? They're able to now sell them energy 4 times as much that they were paying to Russia.
I'm on that Texas grid.
You're on that Texas grid, which
I'm on that Texas grid, which people still hate, because we did suffer from a freeze area, which did suck. So I won't lie about that one, but I think some of the stuff they said about windmill and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm down with that, but like, if it's freaking freezing, it's still freezing those windmills and solar, like, and if it's all gloomy and shit like that,
they may have
with nuclear.
Yeah, they may have fixed that now that they've had that issue, because it's like an additive that they just add to the turbines to keep them from freezing.
Birds flying into the
they were cutting corners, but there could be an energy that's like so out of the box that would almost seem like it was a gift from God, in the sense that, and then that could help. And I'm more of I'm a fan of like thinking the other way, where we figure out how to make it, but somehow it just comes into our existence. That could be this assistance from God that helps us get, or that shows us the way how to get to a society that is not this crazy one we're in now.
No, I do agree with that, because I actually think like the pyramids and the stuff like that. I mean, I believe the technology they used back in biblical days is still to this day way more advanced than what we're at today. Because there's no way that what they claim that how the pyramids were built and stuff like that, there's just absolutely no way. I actually think a lot of it had to do with the kind of with Freemasonry. They talk about the 7 secret sciences, to where when Adam fell, the scripture, it seems to indicate that Adam and stuff were a supernatural being, a being of light, and supposedly that when he fell, that's where human flesh kind of became what it is, but he still retained that knowledge. This is kind of what they think, is that God shared with him kind of how he made certain stuff and whatnot. And he was still able to retain that. And when he had like Cain and Abel and them stuff, he kind of shared that knowledge with them. But I do agree with you in the sense that there's always everything that good comes from God. And to me, with Lucifer and stuff, there's always a twisted version of it, because that's all. He's the great deceiver, and he always wants to have a version and bases off of God, but made for him. Because in Revelations, you pretty much have the unholy trinity. I believe with science, there's stuff that can be used for the good, but you also have a twisted version of it too.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. Well, that's nuclear power, is in that sense, burst from a bomb, and then now, we were powering the world, but now, I do think there's other alternatives, even that energy, but there's been a lot of suppression. Again, to keep the idea, I don't know how much you've dove into Nikola Tesla and his work, but the idea of of wireless energy that can be transmitted globally without a meter. So these technologies, at least in the past, had been started to be developed, and then someone like who was Edison, or not Edison, but who was JP Morgan, who came in and said, well, we can't, meter it. We can't, what am I going to do with all my copper wires that I just invested in? Your system sucks. So we've had these ideas of this type of energies existing in the past, going back to Nikola Tesla, going back to the pyramids, and even further. Now we're finding other ancient relics.
Oh yeah.
And, the what is it, the Bosnian pyramids and Göbekli Tepe and these other ancient sites.
That's kind of like, I think what Hitler was kind of doing too, because with all that, I mean, he was fascinated with twins. He wanted to experiment on them, do all that stuff, and he was into that. To me, personally, like he was into
Yeah,
that.
no, you're right. He was looking for alternatives to win the war. And he definitely had he was in contact with the Vril Society and the Thule Society, and those were groups that used the art of channeling, that's what I, in my show, in my exploration, where people go into a trance and bring through different entities. And you get a guy like Hitler trying to do this type of, it's a technology, a biological technology. But when you get a guy like Hitler and with his evil agendas, he's going to tap into some, it's my belief, what you put out is what you get back. So you can only receive the energy that you put out to the world. So if you're world dominating, trying to, wipe off most of humanity, you're going to receive some really nasty, beings. And I think through the channelers that he, pulled in, and I think some really dark stuff came through. Yeah. And he fed on that energy. He used that energy to develop technologies. And again, technologies are just like a hammer. You can use it to build something, or you can use it to destroy something.
Yep.
So, it's all about the intention and the energy behind it. So yeah, we got some UFO tech back then in those days. Our early days of UFO creation, being pulled through, information coming from these other dimensions. And we had the Foo Fighters at that time. So they were very curious about what was happening on the planet at that time, because it was such a huge shift in human evolution, from building all the war machines to just the mass amounts of deaths, all of that stuff. And we're facing it now, in a different way, different format. And I think that's why they're back. That's why the Foo Fighters, that we had a period of time where they kind of weren't not so popular, but now there's more and more stuff around them. And our military, I think it's irresponsible for the media to be perpetuating a fear-based narrative around them. But that's what media likes to do, is to create fear. And I think there is, I think the only fear that we have to worry about is the humans that may have hold of the technology and are using it in nefarious ways. I think the ETs themselves are waiting patiently behind the veil for humans to get through this time of our evolution, because right now they know that if they were to pop up, they would. There's two factors. So these are the extremes. One, they would be demonized and shot out of the air. The other, they would be worshipped and idolized as being the saviors. And from my interactions with these ETs and the conversations, the ones that we want to be hanging out with, they don't want either one of those scenarios. They don't want to be idolized and worshipped, and they don't want to be considered demons, or they don't want to be, they don't want anybody to be afraid of them. Mm-hmm. So they're going to stay very clear from our Earth until humanity figures this out and sort of gets rid of that polarization that I was talking about that we're all kind of stuck in. And when we do figure that out as a species, then perhaps the ones that we will want to interact with will show up. Until then, use discernment
Yeah.
And anybody that's anybody that's taking in demonized, you know what? There probably are demons, but the ones that are sort of saying, "Oh, we have the solutions to all your problems with advanced medicines and super technology that's going to free you from your problems." Those ones we want to be careful of too, because the ones that I'm hanging out with, they're gonna wait for humanity to figure those things out. They're not gonna come give us any secret sauce, because they know that's only gonna create more dependence on it's the same thing. Dependence on government. It's the same idea. It's this socialism, communism, this idea that government's going to come and save you. It's the same energy as as what we're trying to avoid here.
The idea of I never understood the concept of like, we'll tell you what's best for you. I'm like,
right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's not cool. I think our founding fathers of this country did not see the world that way either. Like, right? So I think they were onto something back then, and I think to ignore their words, especially these past 3 years, it's been brutal to experience and watch.
Absolutely.
When you have a sitting president censored from the largest social media company, I think that's when I knew things were over. I was like, okay, this is. I don't care what you think.
I was gonna say, I think Elon.
Oh no, Elon's back, but now, but this was.
Yeah, I know.
Like when we were in it, when that happened, I was like, oh, this is it. America's done. Like when we just, that was, we had all the censorship issues leading up to that, but that was like the king of all. You're like, oh yeah, that's the old America that we know.
That kind of can tie in. We're an hour and a half in, and we've been avoiding it too. A couple things, not really avoiding it. It's just I find it's a nice segue. Hey Ronnie. Ronnie says I could listen to Reuben talk all day, talk for hours. Thank you for this. You did have a question, and actually it does kind of tie. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. It actually does tie into what I first originally. Well, part of it when I reached out to you a long time ago.
Yeah. We should get on that subject. I'm sorry, I keep going on these tangents.
Oh no, don't worry about it. I said this is a free flow. I just wherever the conversation goes, that's where we're going. Amy says, "Hey Reuben, what's the best way to help people wake up from woke and see past all of these distractions and division?" And the keyword being woke is obviously. If you have an answer for that, go ahead, and then we'll go into kind of what I talked about a little bit in the email when I first reached out to you.
I think the key thing is just love them anyways. Love them for who they are. Don't fall into the us versus them polarity game, because that's what their whatever ideologies that they're subscribing to is. It's about creating this victim and then creating a victim villain type scenario. So don't buy into it. Obviously, don't feed. If you can't have a conversation about victimhood and how that is not a healthy place to be, and it's especially putting the no matter if it's true or not. If there's a ton of bad things have happened on this planet in the past. We're talking about right now. Right now, that does not do us any good by creating a victim and a villain, to vilify, oh, that person, he's responsible for all this stuff. That does nobody any good. Right now, we have to take responsibility ourselves. And so I guess the message is for, if you know people or if you have people in your friends and family that are subscribing to those, one, don't feed into it. So don't agree with it, because it's the same thing. So don't support their victimhood, but support them as human beings in love. And I know that's a fine line. So it's kind of like stay 1 foot away so you don't get caught up in the drama, but send them love from far away. And when they can, and they decide to not play that victim villain role, and they're actually like want real friendship and real friends and want to have a real conversation just about other stuff than them being a victim, then be there for them. Don't sever ties completely, unless it's for your own sanity. Which I know right now a lot of people for their own sanity are just like, okay, I'm cutting you off, delete that number, block that. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and like I was saying, what you put out is what you get back. So if we dish out the same non-acceptance, the same goofy, I don't really not in their heads that much, but if we the same wokeness, right? If the same kind of wokeness, but whatever they're saying, it just wouldn't, it's not healthy. It's a not healthy place to be. So try to just be supportive from a distance, and look for the openings, because just as we're seeing, it's not sustainable. It's a the woke ideologies. It's look at what's happening to our infrastructure. Look what's happening to the family unit, right? Look what's happening to friends. There's just all this. It's just all this polarity and hate, and it's not doing anybody any good. And eventually, they're going to burn out, and like once they get it out of their system, here's another just little, side step. It's not the problem is we've had certain groups of society that have been suppressed for a long time, and we've been working on it. Humanity obviously could have been doing way better on their on how they handled a lot of these things over the years, but segregation, separation, discrimination, these are all things of belief systems, of we've had a problem with acceptance and tolerance and belief systems. But the pendulum went to this extreme where so many people were suppressed for so long and not being able to express their beliefs, and now the pendulum is swinging this way, and you have a select group of people that are egging this on. It's like it's time for the pendulum to swing, but not this extreme. It's gone way too far, and we need to dial it back somewhere in the middle. And so because it was over here, so you have a lot of people with suppressing. It's like pushing a beach ball down in the water and holding it down. You can only hold it down so long, and then you're exhausted, and then it just shoots out, right? So that's what's happening with these groups, right? The I don't even have to go down the list, but you have a bunch of groups that are sort of now, that energy is being perpetuated. So if we can everybody just take a chill pill, and then support each other instead of throwing each other under the bus. I know that was a long-winded answer to that question. And I don't even know if it answered the question. But anyways, I had to get that out.
No, yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Chaos. Okay. Yeah, you're a big help. And then when I couldn't remember where that quote was from, he says, "You're no Charles Dickens, Grego. Don't quit your day job." Dude, I'm going to make you the GIMP and shove you in the box. And then when you're needed, you will be released. And then when you're not needed, you're back in. But in any case, yeah, really, really awesome answer. And like I said, we'll kind of go ahead and just
go to the next. If we can get there.
Yeah, we'll get to one of the reasons why I reached out to you is unfortunately you had some backlash of God forbid difference of opinions on a social media, where one would think that difference of opinions would be fine because all you would do in the end is just like, oh, that's cool, and then just move on to your next thing, to whoever. Yeah. But you did kind of get some backlash for that stuff, and it's just something to where I hate cancellation. I hate this idea of, again, like what you're talking about, this extreme to where, well, if you even slightly support this in any way, you're this all the way through. And it's like, well, one is that, well, to me, it's like, if you want to keep poking that bear, it's fine, but you're not going to see any tears from me when the bear wakes up and slashes at you, like, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to be that way, but you know, that's kind of how it
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's going on, and that's what we have to try to avoid. Is one, don't poke the bear, which there's plenty of that going on, but two, just like, you know, gotta wake some people up to get them to realize that, hey, there's going to be ramifications if you keep doing this, you know, and it's not going to end well. And it's sort of a, I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. I don't think there's too much we need to worry about. Again, it's not sustainable. It's a self-destruction habits that they either have to change their ways or die. That's, you know, that's same with humanity. I mean, that's humanity in general. We all have to change it. I'm not just going to single out any specific group, but this is everybody's, we're all in this camp. We have to change our ways or we die, you know? And right now we're subscribing to a lot of really old, outdated belief systems when it comes to our financial systems and these kinds of things. So not talking about religions as much as how we believe the world should work, right? Through our, yeah.
I mean, that's it is kind of interesting because, I mean, for me, that is kind of something that I do kind of not so much combat, but point out too, because even religions are starting to take that extreme to where, for example, Christianity, there's this progressive Christianity that's coming into play, and it's not scripturally found. It's starting to try to change it to where, as much as it can upset you and whatnot, Christianity is all about being sin conscious and doing a 180. And this perversion of Christianity that I call progressive Christianity is getting away from that and saying, well, as long as you feel good, that's all that matters. Well, I mean,
yeah, that's a dangerous territory.
Yeah, that's a very dangerous territory. And that's kind of where, I mean, for me, you know, with Lucifer and whatnot, like what the scripture says, being like a roaring lion looking around, looking for people to devour. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't need any help creating more murder and ways to kill people and oppress people and stuff. Humanity has figured that out pretty much. Yeah, he's totally attacking. I think he's definitely targeting I mean, again, from a Judeo-Christian standpoint, that's what he's targeting. So that's what he's focused on too. But what you were talking about, Reuben, is trying to find that nice balance of that love from afar sort of thing. In scripture, it's called that agape love, that unconditional, ungodly love of, as a human being and whatnot, I'm called to love you in whatever shape I can. However, sometimes that love can be me just, hey, I wish you Godspeed and all that you do. And if God puts me in your life to try to, you know, go towards him, that's fine. That's another thing too with people in Christianity. They expect to plant the seed, help it grow, and then see everything happen and whatnot. And sometimes God does not call you to do that. Sometimes you're just to plant the seed and then just go. But exactly what,
sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. But that's exactly what you're talking about, Reuben, that unconditional love. And that does not mean that because you unconditionally love somebody, that you agree 100% with their ideology or what have you and whatnot. So
yeah, and that's where so many of the big-hearted, even, you know, especially Christians, I see fall into the trap, because they have such big hearts and they want to help everybody. And during this time of, you know, with you know, the whole COVID psyop, you know, it's easy to fall victim to that because because the way the narrative is pushing it, and this is for, you know, this is the same with Greta Thunberg and, you know, the whole climate change thing. This is why it's so easy to fall into that that camp of it, right? Because you have the little girl screaming, you have, you know, the animals that are dying. And it's not saying that that's not happening. It's just the way that this select group is positioning the narrative to benefit them. And they're pushing that out really hardcore. And it's easy for anybody with a big heart who has unconditional love to just fall into that trap of giving them everything you got, fully believing that agenda, and then turning out that, oh, if you talk about, for me, the Antichrist is the agenda, because it is packaged really nice, right, with this equity and free energy, not free energy, but green energy, right? And and they put a nice package around it. But when you look at the reality of the situation, it's the exact opposite on all accounts. It is literally upside down on every single one of the points that they're trying to push. Be happy and own nothing, right? That all the WEF slogan, World Economic Forum. Take your booster every week and you'll be happy. That whole dependence on that system, but getting in there and thinking that that's how it is. It's not, and that's not how reality is. So that's where I think a lot of people during this past 3 years still are learning discernment, and not just to gullibly believe everything that the TV's telling you. When there's a story about,
well, that's what they wanted too, because everyone was stuck inside. They wanted you to go to the TV. They wanted
when you're in fear about an unseen virus that could get transferred just through the mail, that's what they were selling in the beginning days. When you have a society, a world that is in panic and fear around this unseen thing that we don't know what it is and it could kill everybody, plus you're watching the fear tube, telling you, oh, you got to do this to survive, you got to do that to survive, and everybody's just in mass confusion, and they're just like, oh, and now this guy just got killed by these cops, so wait, that's racial, oh, that's what the TV's telling me, oh, that's terrible, okay, we need to go riot, we need to destroy things because that's what the television's telling me to do. And people bought into it, and people just went full in. And
it was mostly just peaceful, didn't you hear?
Right. Yeah. Tell that to all the shop owners who lost their businesses.
And that one guy got killed too out there.
Yeah. A lot. It was
more than just one guy, but I remember
there was a lot of death and carnage in the streets for months.
There was I remember one specific, and I feel bad that I can't remember the guy's name, but
well, we had the Seattle. I mean, it was a mess, and and then meanwhile you have the evil orange man on TV, doing, and his followers doing the evil storming of the Capitol, which in real time you could see them opening the gates. You could see what was going on, and that was taking 3 years. 3 years for Tucker to release the videos for people to finally be like, oh, that doesn't look like a insurrection. There's still people in jail that are, for simply walking through a door that they were ushered in, and not causing any damage at all.
Streamers too that showed that as well.
Exactly.
I actually remember seeing live streamers who are live streaming doing it too, and people would go back to their video, look at it, and see that stuff. But it was definitely one of the biggest bloodbaths I ever saw that day.
Yeah. Okay. So this is again, but because of the way it's being portrayed in the news, and they're just constantly, they're putting sound effects over, the bigger wide shots. They put all this crazy riot sound effects before they air the videos to make it seem even bigger and louder than it really is. And then you have, what's her name? OC, or what, the strange congresswoman that likes to lie all the time, lying about her getting, she's crying.
AOC.
AOC. Yeah. And you have her, making up lies and crying into the media that she was attacked. And then people bought hook, line, and sinker. The problem. So anyways, another tangent. Where were we?
No. We're good. We're good.
It's past my bedtime.
No, really too. And I actually forgot to ask you, like what time you needed to go off. I usually do it like a 2-hour show, and we're like 5 minutes close to it, so we can kind of.
That's good.
We can kind of wrap up here. No, we were just talking about. I mean, I guess we did talk a little bit about it before we started the show. The whole canceling and dealing with Ken and Street Fighter and stuff like that is there anything you would want to say or state or kind of just clear the air and just be like, look, sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, we're this actually. So that I believe I can't put this 100%, but so this was I think 2019. Vic was getting me too'd on Vic Mignogna, and he was going through, all this hatred online and stuff. I didn't know anything about it. I was doing an interview about Devil May Cry. And in the interview, they were asking me again, this was out of left field. So I didn't know I didn't know the Vic situation. I didn't know how hot it was at the time. And, they were asking me, working with Vic and how was that? And I was like, oh, it was cool. I had a good time. He very passionate about Star Trek, and we both have that passion. And then they said, well, all this stuff is happening to him. What do you think about that? I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't know. I think I said it. It sounds a bit extreme. I don't, from the guy I know, he was. Yeah, there was, he was a touchy-feely kind of guy, and that, it's how he works on set and stuff. But he was like your typical nice guy, nice guy actor, voiceover guy. So I just said that was not my experience, basically. Just from my interaction, that was not my experience. Enough said. That's so all of a sudden I had all these haters because I wasn't going along with the mainstream. Right, with whatever they were, let's throw Vic under the bus camp, and I had no reason to do that based on my experiences with the guy. We always had good chats and talks. Anyways, the Newsweek reached out. Newsweek, some writer from Newsweek, right, reached out and said, I want to interview you about this situation, about what you said and whatever in that interview. And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. But I will tell you from the get-go, I'd be glad to talk about anything except I don't know the Vic situation. So I'd rather not talk about that. We can talk about everything else I said. I think I brought up Black Lives Matter and Me Too. And I think I talked about how those types of groups start off with good intentions and have really good people behind them. And then in the case of now more than ever, at that time, I was already starting to see the signs that it was getting hijacked, but we could see now that fully now with the misappropriation of funds and all the terrible stuff from the owners of that organization, they haven't done anything for their community or given any money, from what I know, to hardly to help actual Black lives. So, anyways, at that time, I sort of had hinted that. I was like, yeah, these organizations, these groups start off really good, but they don't necessarily always end up that way. And I told Newsweek I'd be happy to talk about any of that stuff. I'm just not going to talk about Vic, because I don't know. And I didn't, So I didn't get an email response. Nothing happened. And then a few days later, this hit piece, Newsweek put out this hit piece calling me a right-wing extremist, a anti-Black Lives Matter, all that stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, crazy, so this was woke culture before woke became, a thing. It was in the early days of woke culture. But then they took things that I said in the interview totally out of context, cut and pasted them, made them all, and just totally threw me under the bus. And it was, not an ounce of it was true. And released this article on Newsweek. I'm just like, what? why would Newsweek have any interest in a guy like me that's just talking about, we're just talking about video games. And even with the Vic situation, it was so, I guess it was polarized in the media, and maybe that's why, I don't know. It was just such a, like, what the hell would somebody from Newsweek have an interest in this, in me having a comment about Vic? Like, what? It just made zero sense.
It's a long rabbit hole.
Yeah. And so anyways, that came out. And then to my surprise, my business partner in Japan calls me and he's like, Reuben, we as a company just lost this project that they were doing around with Ono-san in Street Fighter. And this was Street Fighter 5. And they said, and just because they're associated with me, even though I'd left the company, and they told me that, he's like asking me, what the hell did you say? What's going on? And I said, dude, none of that stuff is true. Absolutely every ounce of it is made up. And so I actually think I got canned back in 2019, not because of the woke culture. And, I've been I've always on Twitter, especially during the censorship days, I think I pushed my limits with post without getting censored. I was trying to, talk about relative things and like, hey guys, this is all, farce and all this stuff as much as I could without, writing that line. And I realized a lot of people, like I posted the Plandemic movie, my friend Mickey Willis, he directed it. So when it came out, I posted it and I had death threats because I posted a movie. Now, if you go back and watch it now, everything has turned out to be 100% true. There's not been a single, if you actually fact check everything in that movie, 100% fact checked. And that came out, 2 years ago. And I, reposted it. I was supporting my friend's work, and it was crazy. I remember people calling me, "Are you okay? You got death threats." Anyways, so I've been dealing with this sort of woke ideology since 2019, because then I tried to take a meeting with Ono-san at E3 and just explain my position. I said, dude, you got to hear me out. Like, if you're not hearing my side of the story, you're only seeing this Newsweek thing.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even take a meeting with me. The Kobayashi producer from Devil May Cry would actually call him and tried to arrange it for me. He wouldn't even take a meeting. I heard now, I don't know if he's still involved with the company. I don't know. But that was ultimately, that's what I can't say for sure, but I think that's the reason I was canceled, so-called. And then the big question was, well, why is the Devil May Cry? I actually went after that and worked on Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition. And we were like, well, why is the Devil May Cry team okay? And they haven't canceled me. And they said, oh, we simply looked at the article and did a little research, and we totally found out it was all bullshit. And of course, why would we cancel Reuben? And I'm like, well, why can't Ono-san and the Street Fighter team do the same homework?
That's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do is do homework. So it was kind of this, because at first I was like, did Capcom cancel me? And that wasn't the case. It was just this one guy just drunk, he read, and he did the same thing with the voice of Chun-Li. What's her name?
Oh, geez.
I'm blanking. I've played so many times. Anyways,
don't worry.
I'm gonna get. I've been in my dungeon here too long. My brain went. Anyways, so wait, similar thing. Laura Bailey, yes, Laura. So similar thing with Laura. I had heard, and again, this is, don't quote me on this. This is just through what I've heard, that because Laura in Uncharted 5, she played a black woman.
4
in the game. 4. Okay, sorry. And there was all this hate on Laura Bailey because she was a white woman portraying a black woman in the in the game. And, Neo Drunk, he said out, he's like, look, we auditioned tons of Black women, and she did the best version of the role that we needed. And it wasn't about color or options or anything. It was just about performance. And anyways, the woke groups obviously made a big deal about that. And then Ono caught wind of that and was like, yeah, we're not bringing her back either. So it's crazy, man. That's whole,
what's happening right now.
Okay.
With I call it Sony role, since Sony bought Crunchyroll, which bought Funimation and stuff like that. No, people are in an uproar because they're now demanding that, exactly what you're saying. This concept of just being the best part for the role. Yeah. And you just audition tons of people. They're now demanding that, if it's this ethnicity, only ethnicity type people deserve to play it.
Right.
Stuff like that, which, again, we're at the 2-hour limit. That's really pissing me off. But I'm absolutely sorry that happened to you and to Laura too.
No, but just, I know it pisses you off and it pisses me off too, but we have to again look at the fact that this is bigger than just a few people getting upset about something. This is a psychological warfare game that's being put on humanity. And unfortunately, that select group, the wokeism group, are fully buying into that. They're being played by it. So get angry at the ideologies, and then what do you call it? The narratives, the media that's perpetuating this kind of thing. Because I think, I'm hoping that once we get through this crazy time and we can reconnect with our family members that maybe we're fighting over these stupid things, and realize the true value is with our friends and our family. Like, this is not, it doesn't matter about who you voted for or what your pronouns are. It just doesn't matter about any of that stuff. This matters about human connection. We've lost that, and people, because they've gotten so disconnected, it's making them crazy. It's making people go crazy, literally. And it's the connection that's going to bring us back. So the best thing is not to keep pushing, create distance in a safe way, but ultimately we have to see them as fellow human beings, perhaps far out there, crazy and hard to be with human beings, but nonetheless, they're our fellow human beings, and we need to treat them with unconditional love and compassion.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to talk to Laura too, but she even got blowback from Abby with the whole Last of Us Part 2, which I have my own thoughts on the Last of Us Part 2, but that's another thing. I'm truly sorry that happened to you and to Laura.
It's good. I know
all that stuff.
Yeah, I know. They probably got the worst of it.
No, yeah, he got. Yeah, he got. But
he navigates it so well, though. He does such a brilliant job.
Yeah, he's definitely, the faith was tested with him.
Yeah.
But if you just want, I just wanted to let you know, I know there's a place called Bounding Into Comics. They do news articles and stuff like that, and they covered your cancellation, and I did a little video about that too. And they're awesome. They're just like, that's pretty much bullshit. But yeah, I don't want to keep you anymore if you need to head out. But I always
I probably should get going. I know my wife's probably wondering where.
Yeah. But before you sign off, would you you can, all of Reuben's information is in the description below. Like and subscribe this video as well. But Reuben, if there's anything you want to plug in, feel free to do it right now.
So if you like this conversation, I do it every week. I have a membership portal. So my TV show, which is on the Guy Network, is called Interview with Ed, Extra Dimensionals. And every week I interview, I do the interviewing, and I interview people from all kinds of walks of life, inventors and spiritual gurus and channelers and people who claim they're talking to aliens. And we have the conversation like this every week. And come and join us. We're over at interviewwithed.org.
All right, so there you go. And I'll reiterate once again, all of Reuben's information, social medias is in the description below. I made everything separate, but I also included the link tree that's on your Twitter.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, Reuben, it was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for having me. Stumble upon my email and reaching out.
Yeah, it's good to sort of talk about this now. I feel we're in a good climate where we can have these conversations. Where just a year ago, this would upset so many people. Where I think now people are starting to like, oh yeah, something's wrong with this narrative.
That's something I never understood, because it's like, why are you putting all this energy into people that you're probably never going to interact and see? Like, why not just?
It makes no sense.
Like what you said, hang around your friends and family and people you can connect with.
Exactly.
And you can learn to develop like a tolerance of different opinions, but still getting along and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Which was it was a beautiful conversation today. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I always tell my guests, you're more than welcome to come back on whenever you want.
Awesome.
I'm always down to talk more stuff, because I think we definitely just scratched the surface. So much
we did.
Yeah,
we did. We talked a lot, but we scratched the surface. So yeah, for sure. I'd love to come back.
Awesome. All right. Well, you guys have a good one. Take care. Have a good night. And I will catch you on the flip side. Have a good one.